Okay, so picture this. The Roman Empire, the biggest superpower of the ancient world, well, it's in a total nosedive. I mean, it's falling apart at the seams. So what's the plan? For one emperor, Diocletian, the answer was, well, it was pretty wild. He decided to split the power between four emperors. Yeah, you heard that right. Let's break down this, let's call it the four emperor fix. And really, this was the exact question staring Roman leaders right in the face back in the 3rd century. This wasn't some kind of thought experiment. The empire was literally crumbling from the inside out while enemies were hammering it from all sides. So before we even get to the whole four emperor thing, we've got to set the scene. You need to understand just how bad things had gotten. Seriously, Rome was basically in a 50-year-long freefall. I mean, look at this. It was a total systems failure. Just try to imagine it. You've got generals in this constant battle royale to become the next emperor, which means, you guessed it, endless civil wars. And while they're all busy fighting each other, well, tribes are hammering the northern borders, and rival empires are pushing in from the east. On top of that, the economy was a complete mess. Money was pretty much worthless, trade ground to a halt. The government in Rome, totally, completely overwhelmed. And get this wasn't some quick 5-year problem. This whole period of just intense chaos. Historians actually call it the crisis of the 3rd century. It went on for about 50 years. 50! That's an entire lifetime of instability for the people who had to live through it. Just think about that. So who finally steps in to stop the bleeding? Well, in comes this guy, a brilliant and super organized soldier named Diocletian. And he's got a plan. A really, really radical plan to save the empire. Now, Diocletian wasn't born into royalty or anything. Nope. He was a tough soldier who worked his way up the ranks. So in 284, when the current emperor dies, what happens? Diocletian's own troops just declare him the new boss. Simple as that. And because he'd spent years on the front lines, he knew better than almost anyone that the whole system was just completely, utterly broke. And here's his big idea, his key insight. The empire wasn't failing because it was weak. It was failing because it was just too big. He realized that having one person trying to manage all that territory, all those borders, from Britain to Egypt, it was an impossible job. No one person could do it effectively. So what's his solution? Simple but revolutionary. Split the top job. He decided to create a brand new system of government, something the Romans had literally never seen before. The official name for this system is the Tetrarchy. And this is kind of cool. It's a great example of how words get made. It's smashed together from 2 Greek words, tetra, which means 4, and archia, which means rule. So the Tetrarchy is, quite literally, the rule of 4. Okay, so here's how it worked at first. Diocletian basically took a giant knife and sliced the empire into 2 big halves, east and west. He kept the wealthier, more strategic eastern half for himself and set up his capital over in a city called Nicomedia. Then he handed the western half over to Maximian, a top general he trusted completely. But wait, that's only 2 rulers, right? He didn't stop there. To get to 4, he created 2 new positions. In each half of the empire, you'd have a senior emperor with the title Augustus and a junior emperor called a Caesar. Think of it like this. The Augustus was the big boss, and the Caesar was his second in command, and, crucially, his successor in training. The whole point of this was to stop those endless civil wars by making it crystal clear who was next in line. And Diocletian didn't just add more emperors and call it a day. No, this was a total system reboot. He went in and changed everything. How the government worked, how the military was structured, even how the economy ran. First up, he decentralized power. So forget about Rome. Yeah, Rome wasn't the main capital city anymore. Instead, the 4 new rulers set up brand new capitals right near the most dangerous borders. Why? So they could get to the action and stop an invasion almost immediately, instead of waiting for news to travel all the way back to Italy. Next up, he overhauled the military. He came up with this clever 2-layer defense system. Layer 1, he stationed troops permanently in forts all along the borders. Think of them as a tripwire. If an enemy crossed, they'd sound the alarm. Then, for layer 2, behind that tripwire, he created these big mobile armies that could race to any major trouble spot on a moment's notice. It made the whole defense way more flexible and effective. Of course, all of this, a bigger army, new capitals, it all costs a ton of money. So to pay for it all, Diocletian introduced a brand new, much stricter tax system to make sure the government had a steady stream of cash. He also tried to fix the broken economy by putting price controls on,
Well, everything. He basically published a list saying, you can't charge more than this for bread or shoes or whatever. And it totally backfired. Big time. I mean, if a baker couldn't sell bread for what it was actually worth, what would he do? He'd just sell it on the black market for a higher price. It didn't really solve the problem at all.
And finally, he changed the whole vibe of being emperor. He got rid of the old idea of the emperor as just the first citizen among equals. Instead, he made the emperor a distant, almost godlike figure. We're talking jeweled robes, elaborate ceremonies where people had to bow down, the whole 9 yards. The goal here was to make the government seem incredibly powerful and stable, to command absolute, unquestioning respect. So, for about 20 years, it actually worked. Diocletian's plan brought peace and stability. But what happened after he left the picture? Did his big four-emperor fix actually hold up in the long run? Let's see. And, well, here's the dramatic collapse. In 305, Diocletian does something nobody expected. He retires, voluntarily. He just gives up all that power and goes off to his palace to grow cabbages. Seriously, it was a shocking move. And the biggest irony of all, the second he's gone, the very system he built to prevent civil wars ends up causing a massive civil war. The new emperors and their sons all immediately start fighting each other for total control. It's a huge mess that lasts for years, until one ruthless general, a guy you might have heard of named Constantine, wins everything and makes himself the one and only ruler again. So what's the final takeaway here? Well, the Tetrarchy itself, the rule of four, was pretty much a failure. It just didn't last. But Diocletian's other big idea, splitting the empire in half to make it more manageable, that was a total game changer. That reform stuck around for centuries and completely reshaped the course of European history. And that leaves us with a really big question about Diocletian and his whole project. Do you call it a failure because the four-emperor system collapsed so quickly? Or was it actually the emergency reboot that the empire desperately needed? Was it the very thing that allowed the eastern half of the empire at least to survive for another 1,000 years? It's a tough one. What do you think?